Great. Well, welcome everyone to the investor Q&A for Antelope Recovery. My name is Travis Hinton. I am a project manager for the company and will be hosting the call today. Joining us, we have CEO and founder Shelby Robbins, Megan Rose, our head of data and security, and Anne, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Wynn,
Yeah.
Our clinical director. Shelby, would you like to do an introduction?
I would. And Travis, are we recording?
Yeah, we're going right now.
Okay, great. Okay, good. Great. So yes, I'm Shelby Robbins. I'm the CEO and founder of Antelope Recovery. We are an online teen intensive outpatient program in the state of Colorado. We are opening our doors this January to begin accepting our first cohort of clients. We're really excited for that. And right now we are raising money for the program. We're raising an angel round through WeFunder. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what that means, what it means to be raising money through WeFunder. We're going to answer any questions y'all have about what an investment like this is, how it works, who we are, more about our program and why it's unique, how we're leveraging the lessons learned after this first wave of mental health, telehealth companies happened since 2020, and dive in that way. So that's what we're up to today.
Awesome. Thank you, Shelby. Yes, looks like we don't have anyone joining us right now, so we do have a list of questions that we'll start with. I'd like to start just by asking why you chose to do this, and I think I'd like to hear from everyone actually on this one. But Shelby, if you want to start, or if someone else wants to, but yeah.
Great. Yeah, I'm happy to start. So I wanted to start Antelope Recovery for a few reasons. The first is deeply personal. So mental illness has been something I've personally struggled with, something my family has struggled with, and friends who have been really close to me have struggled with. I think one of the closest and near and dear examples of that was my high school boyfriend. We were together for 5 years. He developed a heroin addiction while we were dating, and I slowly kind of saw him descend into just a very severe heroin addiction. He was in and out of jail, halfway houses, rehabs, and never really got the support he needed. He overdosed and passed away in 2018. And since then, I've been just deeply committed to teen mental health. Professionally speaking, I'm starting this company because I've seen just a lot of problems with how our mental health care system works. About a year ago, the inpatient program I was working with, we were forced to close our doors due to an increase in wildfire insurance. That's a big deal in Colorado, and we had to find placement for all of our kiddos, and we weren't able to find placement for them. And since then, I've been plotting and thinking and dreaming up of different solutions so that we don't run into that problem. And I think every teen who needs emergency mental health care should have access to it. So we've been working on just innovative clinical solutions to how we can really solve that problem. Great. Megan, do you wanna go next?
Sure. Thanks, Shelby.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm happy to be here. I'm thrilled to be here, actually, to be part of this company. And there's a couple big reasons for me that I'm here. One of them, professionally, I have a history in the solar industry as an engineer. I had 13 years as an engineer in that industry, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to take the skills and the techniques that I used building programs in that industry, several of them, and applying those to the mental health industry. One of the things that distinguishes Antelope is that we're a data-driven company, and I think there's a lot of rigor and things that we can borrow from other industries to sort of get to a place where we are using data rigorously and iteratively to improve our program for teens. So I bring that with me. I also have a great interest in psychology and humans. I find that throughout my career, I've always been motivated by people more than technology. So I think, technology for the human being is something that I've always worked towards, and I see Antelope working towards that as well. On a personal note, I have some mental health issues in my family, and I personally have struggled with mental health issues in my life, especially as a teenager. So I think Antelope's mission really speaks to my soul, that I feel really passionate about helping these teenagers who really sorely need the help. And I see myself in them to some extent. So I think I'm just excited to get a chance to improve the lives of these kids and just do better than what I had as a teenager.
Thanks.
I
guess I'm the last one. Thank you, Megan. My name is Anna. I am the clinical director. Professionally, I've managed and developed programs in nonprofit world for quite a while, for probably close to 15 years. I went into mental health about 10 years ago. Really loved just the fact that we have more awareness about it. Personally, I've always been data driven, and so me going into mental health, which is such a subjective field, is really hard and challenging for me, but it's also very stimulating. And so, when I came across Antelope, I'm like, oh, I can merge the two. I can be a data-driven program, prove that it is effective. Really, really caught my attention and was really enticing to me. And that's why I'm here. But, I've been in this field for a while, and I know the struggle with trying to get services for mental health, whether it be inpatient, an intensive outpatient program, or just traditional outpatient in general. And so I think as we evolve, especially after the pandemic, we wanted to see if the virtual platform would be successful, and we have seen that it is. And so I think having a virtual IOP would be very beneficial, especially for those who have a hard time with transportation or just accessibility to it. And so that is why we're here, and we're developing this program, and I think it's going to serve a lot of people that need help. So yeah.
Thanks, guys. So I think next, I would just like to ask for maybe like a high level overview of what it is that Antelope is doing, and not super in depth. We have that information elsewhere, but what are we doing, and why does it matter?
Great. Yeah. So at Antelope Recovery, we're building an online teen intensive outpatient program. So a teen mental health telehealth company. There are approximately 10 million teenagers in the US with a diagnosis, a severe mental health diagnosis. So teens struggling with early onset schizophrenia, bipolar, addiction, teens struggling with suicidality, suicidal thoughts, or self-harm. 90% of those teens do not have access to mental health care. So at Antelope Recovery, our goal is to help as many teens as we can have access to IOP care that's really high quality. So not only do we want to get them access to care, but we want to continue innovating in the field around what interventions really work for teenagers. How do we get them engaged? It's hard to engage teens in healthcare. They usually find therapists to be very boring people. They're not necessarily interested in connecting with us. So a part of that process involves, again, just different ways of thinking creatively around how we can support these teens. Yeah, so that's kind of big picture Antelope's mission.
Thank you. I'm thinking we go into some WeFunder specific questions now. Does that sound good?
Great.
Yeah, cool. So I think the first question to tackle is why WeFunder instead of a more traditional fundraising model, going to VCs or getting a small business loan. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about the reasoning behind that.
Great. I can jump in there. Or yeah, go ahead, Megan. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to start by saying we want this to be a company that is sort of co-owned by people who share the passion for this mission. You know, there's not a person that I've talked to about Antelope who hasn't said something like, oh, that was me as a teenager. I have a teenager who needs help. I have a relative who needs, who in this country does not have a mental health, a mental illness related story, So I think it makes sense that it's a business that's a collectively owned, business, because that is what you were doing. If you're investing in this WeFunder, you have equity and essentially are like a stakeholder in what we're doing. So I think that's a big part of it. Shelby, you want to say more?
Yeah, I think that was great, Megan.
Thanks.
I'm definitely just feeling pumped up hearing you articulate that. And I think just to add on, we've been really picky about and intentional around how we raise money. And we're not closed off to the idea of working with VCs. It's just working with a particular type of venture capitalist firm. So one of the issues we've seen in the first wave of telehealth companies is a potential values conflict between the typical VC model of blitz scaling services and working with really vulnerable populations, and how blitz scaling and healthcare can sometimes be at odds. So for us, we've not only do we are we really values aligned with WeFunder's model, and really excited to be a co-owned company with the community and with people directly impacted by teen mental illness. But we're also just really watching those potential value conflicts. And the larger investments we have been considering are all with impact-driven VC firms, so that we're not in conflict there.
Great, thank you. So moving on then, curious if you want to talk a bit about returns on investment, specifically with this WeFunder model. Do you have the ability to sell shares in the future? Is there an annual payout based on percentage of company growth? Yeah, just curious if you want to go over some kind of logistical points like that for investment.
Great. Yeah, I can do that. And then Megan or Anne, if you guys want to tack on, definitely jump in. So because we are in such an early stage of our company, we're considering multiple options on how a return on investment would look. So when you invest in the WeFunder right now, you get a safe note. So what that means is the safe note will turn into equity at a later point in time if we do what's called a priced round. At that time, there will be kind of multiple possibilities for how we might structure getting a return on investment. And because we're so early, we haven't decided what that will look like. It could look like buyback options. So once we do a price round, we'll give everyone who invested in our WeFunder an option for us to buy their equity back at a certain rate. It could look like us selling the company to a really values-aligned partner. And that would be another situation in which people would get a return on investment. So there's a few different options here, and we want to keep our options open until we learn more about where we're growing and what all of this will evolve into. Megan and Anne, do you want to add to that?
I'll just add the market opportunity is huge, and that's really what's going to determine, I mean, our success too, you know, in sort of tackling that market is part of it too. But just to put it out there that there's, you know, hundreds of billions of dollars in market opportunity for this particular service and for Antelope as a whole in the United States. So the potential is huge, and we will achieve that goal better and more successfully if at this critical period we're able to raise enough money to just get started. You know, so this is like the most critical period that we'll face in terms of raising those funds. But yeah, just to say that, you know, we currently have a pre-money valuation, you know, of a 3. On the WeFunder it's 2.4 currently for the early round, and then there's sort of a post-money valuation once we start seeing revenue come in that has yet to be determined, but it's almost guaranteed to be much bigger, which means the pie is going to grow over time. So that's one way of looking at it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Megan and Shelby. But yeah, you know, just like anything else, investment is such a scary word for people, and you can never predict if a company or an agency is going to be very profitable. But we're hoping to kind of bank on the fact that there's such a high need in mental health, and that there are people who really want to invest in mental health. And so our goal obviously is to ultimately be a successful IOP that, one, brings and generates a lot of revenue, but two, also helps the community in need. And so I think those two things combined will create a lot of success for us.
Well, that touches on 2 questions I've got here, and so I'll just give them both since they've already both been touched. One being, how did we determine the valuation for the company? And 2, what is the market for IOPs like specifically? Megan, you went into it a tiny bit, but maybe a bit more detail of what the market looks like.
Well, I can kind of discuss kind of the market of the IOP. Right now, what we're seeing, and Shelby touched on this a little bit, some statistics, but there are not enough beds for inpatient, and there's not enough clinicians for outpatient. And so in between there, you have intensive outpatient therapy, and a lot of IOPs don't exist, whether it's a physical or a virtual platform. And so, so the market is pretty high need. I know personally from my professional experience, getting placement for kids, whether it's in therapy or an inpatient, has been very challenging. We're talking about a minimum of like a 3-month wait list, as long as a 9-month wait list. And I always feel that, you know, when a person comes out of inpatient, going straight into outpatient, where you're only meeting once a week after being in treatment for 5 days a week for so long, is such a drastic move, that we need that kind of transition treatment, which is the IOP, where they come and do treatment 3 days a week, or group therapy 3 days a week. And so it kind of helps them transition into the kind of traditional outpatient, where they're just going once a week and just seeking that kind of maintenance support.
Yeah, that definitely leads into, how did we decide on our evaluation? It was really challenging to get a pre-money evaluation for this company, in part because the total addressable market is huge. The amount of teens who need this program is over 10 million teenagers in the US. Standard IOP rates are between $900 to $1,400 per day of outpatient care, or intensive outpatient care. And IOP care is typically 30 to 90 days long. So that is a huge total addressable market. The issue in this business is not finding clients. It's can we organize and scale our providers and our services effectively. But because our TAM, our total addressable market, was so big, the evaluation, the pre-money evaluation for the company was crazy. It was, I think at the high end, over 50 million was the valuation for the company. We tried kind of paring it down. We ended up paring it down to 3 million. So that we can give a better deal and have better terms for the people investing in us early. We really wanted to create really fair terms for those who are interested in supporting us again at this critical time. Mental health care and healthcare in general has really high barriers to entry. There's a lot of paperwork and different bureaucratic processes we have to go through to get off the ground. So our valuation right now is as low as it is because we wanted to basically give back to the people who are taking a chance on us and taking a chance on us getting this service out to the kiddos in need. So that's a little bit more just on our on the market right now and on our valuation.
Thanks. So I'm curious then, like what the next 5 years looks like. Post funding, what does it look like once we've established ourselves in the community? And I've started doing this.
Great. So the next 2 to 3 years, we're really focusing on deepening our relationships to teens in Colorado. One of the things we've learned watching, again, other online IOPs is that blitz scaling into multiple states as fast as possible doesn't work. It does not work, and it's not profitable. So we really want to build our roots here and develop a really high quality program. I know Anne and Megan and I have been working really hard on creating different processes that will help us, again, iteratively adjust the program as we learn. Once our program is really substantial here in the state, we're going to begin developing our multi-state onboarding strategy. So, expanding to which states have both the highest need for services, but also enough providers licensed in those states that we actually will be able to provide those services. There's been a lot of optimistic changes in the laws lately around kind of multi-state telehealth expansion, where it's becoming easier to have different providers be licensed in multiple states at once. So that's really exciting for us. Another part of our 5-year strategy is onboarding different insurance companies. So right now, because we're brand new, we are a private pay program, and it's one of our big priorities over the next few years as we stabilize to begin onboarding both commercial insurance and Medicaid so that we, again, can serve as many kids as possible. So that's a big part of our vision. I'm curious, Anne and Megan, if you want to add.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate, and it's probably why I kind of jumped on board with Antelope, is that one of the things I kind of emphasized with her during our initial talks was that I don't want to be a company that grows so fast that we can't manage it. We really don't want to be quantity over quality, especially with an IOP. So I really wanted to work with Antelope in building a very strong IOP, getting very stable, very secure, solid in our program before we start expanding to different states, and not having so much on our plate that it becomes very messy and very disorganized. And so I do appreciate her saying that that is our ultimate goal, and we will slowly add on to where we need. We will kind of evolve with the trend of mental health. And so there will be processes, but we are going to try to stay on top of things. And like Shelby said, we'll slowly take on a couple of insurance at a time. We're going to do things at a moderate pace, not nothing that will kind of make it uncontrollable or unmanageable. And that's the thing that I think I've seen a lot of agencies and companies fail at. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just add on this process of assessing where we're going next and with which insurances and things is very data driven as well. So fortunately, there's a lot of publicly available data out there that you can use to see, what are the numbers in terms of the need, what we're doing. We're in the process of doing a needs assessment nationwide on where are teens suffering the most, and kind of layering that on the map of like, where are there no therapists or no options within reach. So one of our greatest values of this company is accessibility and engagement. So we're really trying to strategize around, where can we expand next, that's going to be serving the greatest need. And in terms of insurance, what are the biggest providers in terms of different types of counties and, Medicaid versus commercial throughout Colorado that we can onboard to get the most access, to sort of open the doors to the most people that we can. Yeah.
I want to tack on one more thing, just about our next 5 years. And for me, it's all around this engagement piece. So most teens who need mental health care aren't getting it. And I saw this statistic the other day. I wish I remembered the source. I'll have to go dig it up. But it was something like 20% of all teens in programs don't actually have a diagnosis and don't necessarily need therapy. They're not necessarily the kids who are struggling with really severe issues. So how can we reach the kids who actually need what we're offering, especially when it comes to suicide prevention and addiction recovery? So I'm really excited over the next 5 years to explore different innovative clinical techniques related to engagement and increasing engagement numbers. We have a clinical advisor from Denver University who's worked specifically with rural youth over the last 30, 40 years of his career, developing different outdoor interventions that we'd be able to integrate into our program. We've talked to different clinical leaders in the state who are doing unique things, like having 12-year-old boys with ADHD playing Minecraft while on the phone with a therapist. So it's not just, sitting in front of your laptop for 15 hours a week and hoping that a kid will want to show up for that. So I'm really looking forward to developing our clinical program into some of these spaces. And I think a lot of our metrics over the next 5 years are related to, does the program work? How can we increase engagement and then scale that?
Well, that brings me to another question of how is Antelope different than other IOP programs? And why would I, as a parent, want to send my child specifically to Antelope?
Ooh, great questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do I start? I'll probably jump in at some point.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can start. So we have, again, just learned so much from watching this first round of online intensive outpatient programs. And I have two huge takeaways from watching those programs and seeing how they've worked and how they've really failed to improve mental health care. And we have two really big differentiating factors with Antelope. So the first is all about data, and then the second is all about clinical innovation or engagement, clinical engagement. So Megan, I can let you talk about data first, and then I can Vaughn or Ann can.
Yeah, sure. We have a huge opportunity to utilize data in a really effective, cool way that we really haven't seen a whole lot of yet in IOP specifically, but really in large scale mental health care, telehealth, you name it. The beauty of data in and of itself is just data, right? You have to create insights and you have to generate, basically meaning from it. But if it's collected effectively, accurately, it is, connected and pooled in a secure, private manner, obviously, but where there's sort of, enough data. That's a big piece of what we're excited about, is if we're able to expand, we can sort of make more sense of what we're seeing, and then using that to actually generate insights and iteratively improve our program as a result. So, not just collecting it to be like, look what we're doing a great job, but actually to do better. We want to see what's working for who and what isn't working for who, and what is working really even mean. So actually getting to the bottom of what our definition of success, or what we're really interested in tracking, because with mental health, kids who are really struggling with mental health, relapses are very common. Relapses don't mean failure. It's how do they deal with them, and what are the long-term impacts also of the IOP. So a lot of places don't track super long-term impacts to see how are they doing in 3 months and 6 months and a year from now. So we really want to increase the depth and the breadth of the data that is being collected, and actually make it work for the kids that go into the program in the future. So I could talk a lot about that, but that's all I'll say for now. Related to the data.
Great. Yeah, Megan, I always love hearing you share about your love of data. And I resonate so much. I feel so passionately about it. I think mental health care is really still somewhat of a dinosaur. Again, another statistic I read from Thomas Insel, actually, the former director of the National Institute of Mental Health. He has an interesting stat that 90% of mental health care services and companies don't use electronic health records and aren't collecting any data at all about their clients. So if you're not actually tracking if your program works, how do we actually get better at supporting people? So that's something, again, I'm enjoying doubling down on with you. And I think, to circle back around to your question, Travis, around just what makes our program different. I think in addition to our emphasis on data and learning and being a learning organization, is our value on increasing engagement with teens who really need our help. So focusing again on clinical engagement and just getting really creative with how do we support teens, especially rural teens. We're expecting most of our clients will be rural or living in what we call frontier counties in the state of Colorado, where they have to drive over 45 minutes to up to 3 hours to receive any sort of mental health care. So how do we reach kids who might have never been exposed to therapy before, or might have never thought that they could get this type of support? And it might be really new or unique for them. So how do we specifically help those types of teens? And I think if you're listening to this, or if you're a parent who has never had any contact with this type of therapy or needed this kind of help before, I know we would love to work with you. I think we're really excited and interested to support people who are interested in getting it done, who just are ready to help their kids, and we're excited to get to show up that way. And I'm curious if you have anything you want to tack on to
I do. I think, with Antelope, though this is a virtual platform, I think we're going to integrate more of a very holistic approach where this mind body we're hoping to offer more than just, mental health and substance treatment. We want to make sure that people are feeling good about themselves physically and mentally and emotionally. And so I think that's what's going to be very unique about our agency is our company, or whatever you want to call it, is that we really want to do it from a holistic approach. It's just not just the mind, even though we have an emphasis on mental health. And so to me, that would be very enticing. If I wanted to, find a program that is fitting and it would interest the teen, I would want something that has a little bit of variety in the program.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Oh, yeah.
I think one thing we didn't quite touch on yet is sort of how we did talk about how we want to grow sustainably, but I would say another differentiator between us and other telehealth companies out there, other IOP programs out there, is we really strive to give our clinicians and all of our employees a real work-life balance. And we are committed to, not burning out our clinicians with caseloads that are just too big to manage because we're growing too fast. That's often the downfall of a lot of telemedicine or mental health telemedicine companies. So, we could talk more about that related to other companies, what we've seen, et cetera, but that I would say is a big differentiator as well.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Megan. As managing a team before with clinicians, burnout and documentation heavy cases really cause a lot of stress and anxiety for clinicians. And so hopefully as me monitoring and helping kind of form this program, we can kind of alleviate some of that burnout or lessen it as much as possible, and hopefully just give them a very manageable caseload, one that they can still love their job, but yet still have an impact on these kids.
Yeah, I think we're unique in that as the CEO, I've worked not as a licensed clinician, but in mental health care with programs and teens directly as a mental health technician. And we've baked in clinical leadership into every layer of the organization. So having that clinician's perspective has been really important for us, of just how do we support clinicians? What does that really look like? What does that mean? How do we free clinicians up to actually help people so they're not just being bogged down by paperwork and endless hours of notes and, feeling unsupported and being underpaid and getting emergency calls at 3 a.m. because their client, had an emergency come up. Like how are we going to really create policies and procedures and again, just bake it into the culture that supporting our clinicians is how we support our clients. And if our clinicians are burned out, they're not going to do great work with our kids. And that's I'm really glad you brought that up, Megan and Anne. I feel excited imagining just what's possible if we're able to make mental health care healthier that way. And even startup culture, I think, it's very prone to burnout, and we're mental health and startup. So how do we, compete with that?
I thought of another one too.
Love it.
There's like Charlie Health, for example, has an IOP program. They're IOP telehealth, but they do a lot of other things, right? And then there's IOP only programs that don't do telehealth. So we're a unique company because we are focusing on IOP telehealth. And I think that does give us an advantage that we can strive to really provide a lot of high quality in this particular area. All of our policies, procedures, the therapists we hire, everything is geared towards serving teens for IOP online. And so we're not sort of trying to blend a bunch of other things together, which can, it's harder to succeed if you're doing everything. So I think the fact that we're focusing in this area does differentiate us and gives us an advantage.
Well, I don't have too many more questions here that aren't like kind of relatively short logistical questions about the investment. I'm curious if while we're on it, on more like the operations side of things, if anyone has anything else they would want to share here about Antelope before we do move more into logistics. No.
I think, for me, it's just conveying my excitement and pride in what we're doing. And I think we have a really great team that we've put together with really competent, empathetic, and intelligent people who really care about our kids. I think most of us are from Colorado too, which I actually really like, except for Anne. Not to call you out, but I think that's actually pretty unique in that we're, I was born here. I deeply get the Colorado teen experience. So it's fun for me and feels unique to get to be so specialized in Colorado teen intensive outpatient care. Like what does that really look like? And I think we're the right people to pull this off. I think we're really a good, the best group to make this happen. So yeah, thanks, Travis.
Nice.
Love your question. Yeah.
Best group. Woo.
Yeah, including you.
Glad to be a part of it.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, next, I guess, how will this be reported for tax purposes? Will investors receive a K-1 and report the income on their tax return, or just receive dividend payments reported on a 1099 div?
Great. So I have this written down and I'm looking for it. So this investment can be written off for tax purposes. And because we haven't decided how we're moving forward after this round, if we're doing a priced round, if we're doing a buyback program, taxes after this are something we'll be giving our investors guidance on as we move forward. But as far as investing in our WeFunder this year or in 2023, you can write the investment off. I'm forgetting under what code, but I think we have it in our WeFunder page. If you scroll down on our slides, it's in there. So.
Great. Next question. What is your plan for communicating with and updating investors once your fundraising round closes?
Great. So every quarter, once our round closes, our team will be writing up a report on the state of the business that we'll send out to all the WeFunder investors and specifically our lead investor for the WeFunder. There is no obligation for anyone who invested to read it or to engage, but you'll have it. And it's, again, just a way that we'll be keeping everyone in the loop. We'll also be having quarterly calls we'll have two different calls. We'll have a call for the board of directors, and the WeFunder lead investor will be on our board of directors. The lead investor is a role we haven't actually talked about in this call yet, so I can share a little bit about what is a lead investor, what do they do. So a lead investor is the person who will be on our cap table that represents everyone who invested in our WeFunder. So our whole cap table, instead of having 50 people on our cap table, we'll just have one person who represents the interests of everyone who invested in our WeFunder campaign. So that person will be invited onto the board of directors and will help hold me accountable as the CEO, and I'll be reporting to the board again quarterly. So there's that meeting, and that lead investor can communicate to the rest of the people on the WeFunder if they'd like to, and I will talk to them about that as we get closer to that. But we'll also have an open call quarterly, just where we'll do a Q&A and answer any questions that anyone from the WeFunder has about what we've been up to, bigger picture kind of business strategy questions. So we'll go into any major hires we've made. We'll talk about kind of profit and loss statements and just what our strategy for growth is quarterly. And again, those are optional. So those calls, you don't need to come unless you're interested and want to engage.
Great. Well, I don't think we have any more questions except for how anyone who wants to contribute but can't, or someone who contributes but would like to do more, could help us out and help the mission.
Great. There are so many ways you can support us, even if you can't actually invest right now. So the first is share our campaign. Share us everywhere. Let people who you think would be interested in our project know that we exist and who we are, and spread the word. Spread the word about what we're doing. Another thing you can do to support us in getting off the ground is to like and comment on all of our ads, all of our posts. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Make sure you're engaging that way. If there's trolls, be nice to them, respond with love and kindness, and that really helps us. It shows the almighty algorithm that our content is interesting, and it should keep spreading us around. The other thing is to engage on our WeFunder page. So if you go to our WeFunder page, it's wefunder.com/antelope. Feel free to follow the campaign and make sure to ask us questions. We have a Q&A, and any and all engagement on that page, again, just supports our campaign and being made known to WeFunder, and helps us build momentum. So those are a few ways. And then what was the last part of the question?
It was pretty much just that, how you can contribute without actually investing.
Great. Yeah. Great.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions we have. Thank you, everyone. Is there, just before we end the video, is there anything else that anyone?
I have a question for Shelby.
Yeah.
If I know a teen who needs IOP services, where would I send them?
Great. You can go to our website. It's anteloperecovery.com. There's no www in front. I've gotten lots of questions about that. It's just anteloperecovery.com. We have a phone number there, and we also have a form on the site. So call or fill out a form. One of us will pick up. And again, we are accepting clients right now for January. So that's the best way you can get in touch with us.
Great.
That was a great question, Megan.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really nice. Yeah, that was nice.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Travis.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Yeah.
All right, well, we will end the recording, and thank you all who have watched.
Yeah. Thanks
Glad
for
to have you
engaging.
guys with us.